Good morning, afternoon, or evening. How are you doing today? Welcome to Mr. Morrow's algebra class. Today we're going to continue with equations. We've already seen one-step equations, and those were pretty easy. And we're going to continue with easy stuff, and it's going to be easy because you're going to learn the procedures. If you learn these steps, I promise you this is a walk in the park. Today we're going to be talking about how to solve two-step and multi-step equations. In addition to that, I'm also going to show you how to solve equations when you have variables on both sides. Those are part of multi-step equations. And I'm going to show you how to make your life a lot easier when you have fractions and or decimals in your equations. So I'm going to work on a lot of great steps today. Well, the goal, as you remember from one-step equations, is to isolate the variable. That means you want to get the variable all by itself. So that means in the end that you want to solve for x over 1 or y over 1 or w over 1, whatever the variable is. But you want to make sure that it's in the numerator, it's positive, and nothing is being added to it or subtracted from it or multiplied or divided to it. And remember what I told you guys yesterday. Think about it like this. You want to solve for x, okay? You want x all by itself. So what you have to look at is basically, what are they doing to the x? If you ask that question every time you look at an equation, what are they doing to the x? And then you just reverse those operations in the proper order, you're going to be set. So, how does it work for a two-step equation? Well, think about it. It's a two-step equation because there are two things happening to the x. Two things. First thing you're going to undo is addition and or subtraction. So in a two-step equation, you're going to have something being added to or subtracted from the x, and you're going to have something being multiplied or divided to the x. And the first thing is to undo addition or subtraction first. Then you undo multiplication and or division second. All right? Pretty easy. When you have a two-step equation, get rid of the addition and subtraction first, and then get rid of the multiplication and or division second. Please remember that whatever you do to one side must be done to the other side. So whatever you do to one side must be done to the other side. This has to be this way because equations must be balanced. So think about when you're lifting weights. If you put 50 pounds on your left side when you're benching, and you put 20 pounds on your right side, you're going to be off. It's not in balance. So you have to have 50 and 50 on both sides or 20 and 20 on both sides. Whatever you do, whatever operation you perform on one side of the equation must be done to the other side of the equation. All right, so let's check it out. Let's practice. Hey, number one, I got 3n minus 4 equals 11. The question to ask, what's being done to the variable? Well, the variable is being multiplied by 3, and it's being subtracted by 4. So I'm going to undo addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to get rid of a negative 4 by adding 4 to both sides. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. I'm left with 3n, which equals 15. Okay, what's happening to the n here? What are they doing to the n? 3 is being multiplied to n, so I get rid of multiplication with division, so I divide 3 to both sides. N equals 5. Now you can check this, okay? You don't have to, but you can. If you're ever wondering, well, that doesn't seem right, I think I'm wrong, let's figure it out. Plug it back in, evaluate it. 3 times n, which you said is 5, minus 4. That's 15 minus 4, which is 11. So yes, it works. Okay, number 2. Okay, there's 2 ways to skin this cat. Okay, I'm going to show you soon how to get rid of complicated fractions. But in this case, when you just have a simple fraction like this, it's very simple. What are they doing to the y here? Well, the y is being divided by 5, and it's being added by 2. So let's get rid of addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides. And I have y divided by 5 equals negative 10. What are they doing to the y? They're dividing by 5, so how do I get rid of this division? I multiply by the reciprocal, 5 over 1 to both sides. The 5's cancel. So y equals negative 10 plus negative 10 times 5 is negative 50. Number 3, negative 14 minus equals negative 5 plus 3. What are they doing to the variable? Well, they're multiplying it by 3 and they're taking away 5. So let's get rid of addition and subtraction first. I want to get rid of this negative 5. I get rid of a negative by adding a positive to both sides. Negative 14 plus 5 is negative 9, which equals 3c. What are they doing to the c? They're multiplying the c by 3. How do I get rid of multiplication? Division. So I undo multiplication by dividing 3 to both sides. Negative 3 equals c. Don't worry if the c is on the left side or the right side. Okay, most times people like to see it like this, but they're both interchangeable. They're both interchangeable. If you're going to switch it, please don't mess with the signs, okay? The c was positive, so make sure it's positive. The 3 was negative, make sure the 3 is negative if you want to switch it. Number 4, negative 6x plus 19 equals 1. Well, what's happening to the x? What are they doing to it? They're multiplying it by a negative 6 and they're adding 19. So I'm going to undo addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract 19 to both sides. I'm left with negative 6x equals negative 18. Negative 6 is being multiplied to x, so I get rid of multiplication with division. I divide 6 because that's the second step of a two-step equation. You undo multiplication and division, and x equals 2. Okay, number 5. I got y minus 4 divided by 2 equals 10. Okay, in this case, you want to get rid of the denominator first. Why? Because this denominator is really being divided to the y and divided to the 4, to the negative 4. So if you wanted to break it down, it would be y over 2 minus 2 equals 10. And then you can go ahead and solve from there by adding 2 to both sides and then multiplying 2 to both sides. However, there's an easier route. Whenever you have a denominator here under two terms that are being added or subtracted, when you have several terms, variables and or numbers on the numerator, simply multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So you multiply by 2 over 1. What does that do? These 2's cancel. Now I'm left with y minus 4 equals 2 times 10 is 20. Now I'm left with a one-step equation. I undo subtraction with addition, add 4 to both sides, y equals 24. Let's look at that again. I got x plus 3 divided by 5 equals negative 1. If I want to get rid of this 5 in the denominator, how do I get rid of that 5 in the denominator? I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 5 over 1 to both sides. The 5's cancel. I'm left with x plus 3 equals negative 5. 3 is being added to x, so I get rid of addition with subtraction. And I got x equals negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. Let's do another one. Negative 2 equals d minus 7 divided by 7. I want to get rid of this 7. So it's in the denominator. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of that bad boy. So I got 7 times negative 2 is negative 14, which equals 7 divided by 7 cancels. I'm left with d minus 7. D minus 7, I have a negative 7 here. I got to undo subtraction with addition. Negative 7 plus 7 is negative 7, which equals d. Last but not least, for the two-step equations, I've got 2x minus 12 equals 8. So I'm going to undo addition and subtraction first. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. I'm left with 2x equals 20. 2 is being multiplied to x. I get rid of multiplication with division. So I divide 2 to both sides. X equals 10. Awesome. All right, that should make sense now. Let's move on. Solving multi-step equations. The good news. Multi-step equations combine one-step and two-step and just add a couple little extra things to it. But the concept is the same. So therefore, the goal is still to isolate the variable. Get the variable all by itself. You want to still solve for x over 1. You always want to solve for the variable in the numerator in positive. And there are some steps. The good news, you can use these steps now for every single equation you see. If a step does not apply, just move on to the next step. Step 1, you're going to complete any distributive property. Please remember, distributive property, when you have a number being multiplied to two other numbers or variables inside of a parentheses, please remember that A must be multiplied to B and it must be multiplied to C. So this is going to equal A times B plus A times C. A numerical example would be, for example, something like this. Negative 3 times 2x plus 4. Well, just distribute this negative 3. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Okay? So that's distributive property. That's what I mean there. So first step, complete any distributive property first. Then we're going to combine like terms on both sides. What are like terms? Well, like terms are numbers. All numbers are like terms. For example, 5 plus 8, they're like terms because they're numbers, so they equal 13. But when we're talking about variables, like terms are variables with the same letter raised to the same power. Okay, so for example, 6x plus 3x, well, 6x's plus 3x's, that's 9x's. The same rules apply for adding integers when you have variables. Negative 8x plus 4x, well, negative 8x plus 4x, negative 8 plus 4, that's going to be negative 4x's, because I have negative 8x's plus 4x's, so I'm left with negative 4x's. So that's what I mean by combine like terms on both sides. Okay. Step 3. Move all variables to one side. You move variables like you move regular numbers. If you have a negative 5x on one side and you got to move it over to the other side, you add 5x. If you have a positive 3x on one side and you need to move it to the other side, you subtract 3x. Number 4. Once you move all the variables to one side, you're going to see visibly that you have a two-step equation left. So you're going to undo addition and or subtraction, and you're going to undo multiplication and or division. If you memorize these steps, you can solve any equation. But you got to memorize them. You got to know them backwards and forwards. Let's practice. It's the only way we're going to learn. Okay. So number 1, I've got negative 20 equals negative 4x minus 6. The steps. Undo any distributive property first. I don't have a distributive property, so I can move on. Step 2, combine all like terms on both sides. Well, I've got a negative 20 here, but negative 4x minus 6x, that's negative 10x. So done. Step 3, move all variables to one side. It's already done. Step 4, undo addition and subtraction. There is no addition and subtraction. Step 5, undo multiplication and division. Negative 10 is being multiplied to x, so I divide 10 to both sides. X equals 2. Number 2, step 1, undo or perform all distributive property. Well, we got one here. So we're going to go 12 equals negative 4 times negative 6 is 24x. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Okay, now I'm left with a two-step equation. I have nothing to simplify. I cannot combine like terms on both sides. I have all variables on one side. Now I have a two-step equation. So I'm going to get rid of this positive 12 by subtracting 12. I'm going to get 0 equals 24x. 24 is being multiplied to x, so divide by 24. X equals 0. Because 0 divided by 24 is 0. Okay. Let me just, all right. 8x minus 2 equals negative 9 plus 7x. Well, let's see how this is going to work. I don't have a distributive property. I don't have any like terms to combine on both sides, but I can move variables to one side. So I like to keep variables positive. So since I have a 7x on the right side and I have an 8x on the left side, I'm going to subtract 7x to both sides. 8x minus 7x is 1x. Drop down the negative 2 because I cannot add numbers and variables. I can add variables to variables, but I cannot add numbers to variables. And that's going to equal 7x minus 7x is 0. So it's going to equal negative 9. X minus 2, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. X equals negative 7. Number 4. Okay, I got 4m minus 4 equals 4m. Okay, let's get the variables together on one side. So I'm going to subtract 4m to both sides. Now watch what happens here. The 4m minus 4m cancels, so I've got negative 4 equals 4m minus 4m is 0. Please pay attention. The variables canceled. You are left with a statement that says negative 4 equals 0. That is a false statement. So when you have a false statement, this is a no solution. Okay? What happens if you have a true statement, you might ask? Well, let's say you have something like this. 6x plus 3 equals 6x plus 3. Okay? I'm going to subtract 6x to both sides, and I'm going to be left with 3 equals 3. That, my friends, is a true statement. And true statements, when you have a true statement, your answer is all real solutions. All real solutions. So if you have a true statement, your answer is all real solutions. If you have a false statement, your answer is no solution. Okay, next. Got negative times 7 minus 4x equals 1. Please remember that negative is simply a negative 1. If you want to rewrite it so that it helps you, please do so. So how do I work with this negative? Well, there's a negative 1. I'm going to distribute it first because that's step 1. Distribute anything. Perform all distributive properties first. So negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4x. And that equals 9. I want to solve for x, so I have a two-step equation. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. The 7's cancel. I've got 4x equals 16. I undo multiplication with division, so I divide 4 to both sides. X equals 4. Number 6. I don't have any distributive property here to perform, but step 2, I can combine like terms. On the left side, I have nothing to combine, but on the right side, I can combine 5x plus 3x, which equals 8x. I have the minus 8 that just drops down. I cannot combine variables and numbers. Okay. Step 3, get all the variables on one side. Okay, let's move this x to the 8x. So I'm going to subtract x to both sides. I like to keep x as positive, that's why. So I'm left with negative 1 on the left side. 8x minus x is 7x minus 8. I got a two-step equation, undo addition or subtraction. So I'm going to undo a negative 8 by adding 8. Negative 1 plus 8 is 7, which equals 7x. 7 is being multiplied to x, so I'm going to divide 7 to both sides, and x equals 1. All right. Let's continue. Let's do some really complicated ones. If you get these, you've got it. Negative 18 minus 6x equals 6 times parentheses 1 plus 3x. Step 1. Perform all distributive property first. So I've got negative 18 minus 6x equals 6 times 1 is 6 plus 6 times 3x is 18x. Step 2, move all variables, combine like terms on both sides. I cannot combine anything on these sides because negative 18 minus 6x cannot be added and 6x plus 18x cannot be added. Step 3, get all the variables together on one side. So I'm going to move this negative 6x to the 18x. I like to keep things positive. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides. On the left side, I'm left with negative 18, which equals 6 plus 24x. Now I have a two-step equation. So I'm going to subtract 6 to both sides to cancel out a positive 6. I've got negative 24 equals 24x. 24 is being multiplied to x. I'm going to divide 24 to both sides. X equals negative 1. All right. Number 8. I got negative 3 times parentheses 4x plus 3 parentheses plus 4 times parentheses 6x plus 1 parentheses equals 43. Let's do it. Step 1. Perform all distributive property. So negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. Negative 3 times positive 3 is minus 9. Plus 4 times 6x is 24x. And 4 times negative 1 times positive 1 is 4. And that equals 43. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. Well, in this case, I can combine the negative 12x and the 24x. Negative 12x's plus 24x's is 12x. And I can combine the negative 9 and the positive 4. Negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5, which equals 43. Now I have a two-step equation. I undo addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to get rid of a negative 5 by adding 5 to both sides. And I've got 12x equals 48. 12 is being multiplied to x, so I divide by 12 to both sides. X equals 4. All right, last but not least on this one. I've got 2 times parentheses 4x minus 3 minus 8 equals 4 plus 2x. All right, step 1, distributive property. So 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Drop down the minus 8. That equals 4 plus 2x. Combine like terms on both sides. Okay, I've got a negative 6 and a negative 8. I can combine those. So I've got 8x, and negative 6 minus 8 is negative 14, which equals 4 plus 2x. Go ahead and get the variables together on one side. So I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides. That's going to leave me with 8x minus 2x is 6x minus 14 equals 4. I'm going to add 14 to both sides. Sorry, let's do this over here. So I'm going to be left with 6x, the 14's cancel, equals 18. 6 is being multiplied to x, so divide 6 to both sides. 6 is turned into 1. X equals 3. 18 divided by 6 is 3. All right. Now, last but not least. Really complicated here. Let's show you how easy this is, though. All right. Distributive property first. So negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5x is positive 25x. Then I have this positive 5 times negative 8, which is negative 40x. Got to distribute. Then I've got this positive 5 times negative 2, which is minus 10, equals negative 4x minus 8x. Step 1 is done. I perform all distributive property. Step 2, combine like terms on both sides. Okay. Negative 5 and negative 10 are like terms, and 25x and negative 40x are like terms. So 25x minus 40x, that's going to be negative 15x. Negative 5 minus 10 is negative 15. Equals negative 4x and negative 8x, they're like terms, so that equals negative 12x. Let's go ahead and add 15x to both sides, because I want to get the variables together on one side. So I add 15x to both sides. I'm left with negative 15 on the left side equals 3x on the right side. 3 is being multiplied to x, so I divide 3 to both sides. And x equals negative 5. Negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. All right. It's about as complicated as it's going to get at this point. All right. Now, what happens when we have fractions? Solving equations involving fractions. The most efficient way to solve multi-step equations involving fractions, in my opinion, guys, is to, and ladies out there, is to eliminate the denominators of all given fractions by multiplying both sides of the equation by the LCD, which is the least common denominator. Once complete, all fractions will be eliminated, and you can proceed to solve the equation with ease. What am I talking about? Let's show you. The best way to learn is by example. All right, I got 3x over 4 minus x over 3 equals 10. Nobody wants to work with fractions here. So the first thing to do is, what is your LCD? The LCD here is 12. So I'm going to multiply 12 to both sides. So what am I creating here? A distributive property. So I've got 12 times 3x, which is 36x divided by 4, minus 12 times x over 3 equals 12 times 10 is 120. 36x divided by 4 is 9x, minus 12x divided by 3 is 4x, equals 120. 9x minus 4x, those are like terms, so 9x minus 4x is 5x, equals 120. Divide both sides by 5 because 5 is being multiplied to the x, and x will equal 24. Awesome. So you see, just multiply by the LCD, get rid of the fractions, solve as normal. Okay, how about number 2? 2x over 5 plus 2 over 4 equals 5 halves. The LCD here is 20. All right? So I'm going to multiply 20 to both sides. So 20 times 2x is 40x over 5. 20 times, because remember, it's numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So 20 times 2 is 40 over 1 times 4 is 4. And that equals 2 times 5 is 100 over 2, because 1 times 2 is 2. So 40x divided by 5 is 8x, plus 40 divided by 4 is 10, equals 100 divided by 2 is 50. No more fractions. Get rid of the positive 10 by subtracting 10 to both sides. I got 8x equals 40. Get rid of multiplication by dividing by 8 to both sides. X will equal 5, which is 40 divided by 8. Okay. Number 3. First thing I got to do, I don't want to work with fractions, so what's my least common denominator? In this case, it's going to be 18. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 18 over 1. 18 over 1 times 1/9 is 18 over 9, because numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. That equals 18 times 5, which is 90 over 6, because 5 times 18 is 90, 6 times 1 is 6, minus 18 times m is 18m over 3 times 1 is 3. All right, 18 over 9 is 2. 90 divided by 6 is 15, minus 18m divided by 3 is 6m. Got a two-step equation now with no fractions. So I'm going to get rid of a positive 15 by subtracting 15 to both sides. Got negative 13 equals negative 6m. I'm going to get rid of that negative 6, which is being multiplied to m, by dividing negative 6 to both sides. So negative 13 divided by 6 is 2. And 1/6, it's positive because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and that equals m. Okay, number 4. What do I have here? Distributive property. So let's distribute. So I've got 3x over 5 minus 60 over 5. If you're confused, remember, put a little denominator here. 3 times x is 3x, 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 20 is negative 60. 5 times 1 is 5. And that equals 9. In this case, you don't have to multiply anything to the 9 because you didn't multiply by the LCD. You just distributed. Now, I want to get rid of these denominators, so go ahead and multiply everything by 5 over 1. So 3 times 5x is 15x over 1 times 5 is 5. Minus 5 times 60 is 300x over 5, which equals 45. 15x divided by 5 is 3x, minus 300 divided by 5 is 60, equals 45. I want to solve this two-step equation, so I'm going to get rid of a negative 60 by adding 60 to both sides. So I'm left with 3x equals 105. I want to solve for x, so I want to get rid of this 3, which is being multiplied to x. So I divide by 3 to both sides. X equals 3 into 105. That's 3. That's 9. So that's 35. So x equals 35. And that's how you tackle fractions. Okay, I know you guys have been patient, and you ladies have been patient, but these are good skills. Last skill, I promise. Okay, we're just going to do 2 examples, and then you're done. Solving equations involving decimals. Again, the most efficient way to solve multi-step equations involving decimals is to eliminate the decimals of all given values by multiplying both sides of the equation by the correct power of 10. In order to find the correct power of 10 to multiply by, simply look for the largest number of values to the right of the decimal point and multiply by the power of 10, which matches the number of values to the right of the decimal point. Once complete, all decimals have been eliminated, and you can solve the equation with ease. Okay, let's practice. Let's look at 3.5 minus 0.02x equals 1.24. Okay, look at the notes here. Look at each value. Okay, I got 3.5, 0.02x, and 1.24. What is the largest number of values to the right of the decimal? Well, I've got one number to the right here. I got 2 numbers to the right here. I got 2 numbers to the right here. So the largest place value here is 2. I got the hundredths. Got 2 places to the right of decimal. Okay, 3.5 has 1 value to the right of the decimal. 0.02 has 2 values to the right of the decimal. 1.24 has 2 values to the right of the decimal. So therefore, you're going to multiply both sides by 100, which is basically 10 squared. All right, so let's do it. Let's get rid of these decimals. I want to get rid of the decimals here. The largest number of decimals I have is the hundredths place. That's 2 places to the right. So I got to multiply by a power of 10 that has 2 zeros. So I'm going to multiply both sides here by 100. Please remember the trick when you're multiplying by 100. You move the decimal to the right for as many zeros as you see. So I have 100 times 3.5. So that's going to be 1, 2 to the right. So that's going to be 350. Minus 100 times 0.02. 1, 2 to the right. So I've got minus 2x equals 100 times 1.24. That's 1, 2 to the right. So that's 124. So now it's Mickey Mouse. 2-step equation. Minus 350 to both sides. So I have negative 2x equals. Please remember, I have 124 minus 350. When the signs are opposite, subtract as normal. So 350 minus 124. Subtract as normal. And then keep the sign of the largest absolute value. There are more negatives than positives, so this will equal negative 226. Divide both sides by negative 2 to cancel the multiplication. X equals negative 113. All right, last one. Now 1.025x plus 0.2458 plus 7.583. The largest number of values to the right of the decimal, there's 3 values here. We're going to the thousands place. So since we're in the thousands place, we're talking about 3 decimals, we're talking about 3 zeros, we're going to multiply everything by 1,000. We're going to multiply everything by 1,000. So 1,000 times 1.025, decimal to the right, 3 places. That's 1,025x plus 1,000 times 2.458, 3 decimal places to the right, because there's 3 zeros. So I've got 2,458 equals 1,000 times 7.583, 1, 2, 3 to the right. So I've got 7,583. Now it's pretty easy. 2-step equation. Undo addition and subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 2,458 to both sides. So I'm left with 1,025x equals, this is a 5. Got to borrow, right, to make that a 13. So that's a 2, 1, 5. So I've got 5,125. Well, Sorry. Let's just get rid of that. Whoa, what did I do here? Okay, let's just leave it like that. Let's take this. Oh, let's just leave it like that. Okay, so let's do it. I got 1,025 being multiplied to x. So let's divide 1,025 to both sides because I cancel out multiplication with division. And x is going to equal 5. I promise. To the division. Thank you very much. You learned a lot of useful stuff. Memorize the steps. Practice, practice, practice. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.